Tonight on Business Live, MTN Ghana withdraws case from Supreme Court seeking a review of the High Court's decision declaring it a significant market operator. Also, services sector maintains dominance as leading job provider in the economy, accounting for an incredible 91.6% of advertised jobs. We have the details. Plus, the World Bank projects a much lower fiscal deficit for gross domestic product for Ghana this year, compared with government's revised forecast of 12.2%. I'm Israel Lyon. Business Live continues in a bit. The services sector has maintained its dominance as the leading job provider in the economy, accounting for approximately 92% of total advertised jobs recorded during the second quarter of this year. That's according to the latest Bank of Ghana development report. Charles Nixon breaks it down in the following report.
Compared with 1.7% of total job adverts recorded for the corresponding quarter of last year. Further analysis showed that the main requirements for skilled employees were tertiary education qualifications and a minimum of 3 years working experience. This category, classified as professionals and technicians, collectively accounted for 57.8% of total jobs advertised during the second quarter of this year, relative to 51.4% recorded in the second quarter of last year. This was followed by sales and other service workers, accounting for 37%, secretarial and clerical staff, which only accounted for 2.4%, and machine operators, which witnessed 1.5% of advertised jobs. In total, 2,599 job adverts were recorded as compared with 2,148 for the second quarter of last year. This indicates a growth of 21.0%. Similarly, the number of job vacancies advertised in the second quarter of the year increased by 11.9%.
The World Bank is projecting a much lower fiscal deficit of 7.2% of gross domestic product for Ghana this year, less than the government's revised forecast of 12.2%. That is contained in its Africa Pulse report. Charles Nixon has more.
The fiscal deficit of GDP will be about 5% lower than government's revised forecast. Government had earlier projected a fiscal balance of negative 4.4% of GDP, but COVID-19 compelled it to revise the target by a wider margin. However, recent pickup in economic activities, which is expected to bring in some needed revenue, may have led to this adjustment. Nevertheless, the country's fiscal deficit, that is the shortfall in revenue compared with spending, is expected to be second to South Africa in sub-Saharan Africa. Revised total revenue and grants for this year are estimated at 51 billion cedis, while total expenditure, including arrears, is projected at 99 billion cedis. The estimated total revenue is about 1.6 billion cedis lower than last year's figure. The World Bank said the average increase in the fiscal deficit in sub-Saharan Africa this year is considerably smaller relative to that of advanced economies. Globally, the nation's budget deficit for this year will be lower than the United States of America, but higher than Germany and the United Kingdom. But neighboring Nigeria, with over 200 million population, will register a budget deficit of 1.3% of GDP. The sub-Saharan Africa average is forecast at 3.5 percentage points of GDP. The World Bank, however, expressed concerns about the fiscal support deployed by governments in the region.
And on to our top story for this evening. MTN Ghana has withdrawn its case from the Supreme Court, seeking a review of the High Court's decision declaring it a significant market operator. JoyNews understands lawyers of the telecom market leader informed the court they have been advised to withdraw the case to pave way for stakeholder consultations. The Supreme Court subsequently struck out the case as withdrawn. The lawyer for the National Communications Authority, Gary Nimako Mafo, spoke with Joy Business after Tuesday's hearing.
Well, I think that basically what MTN has done appears to me a very good step. I have maintained from day one that the right procedure is to engage the regulator. Because if you look at the documents so far available, the issue about not being heard, to me, in my opinion, was not the best approach. You should engage the regulator, talk to the regulator. Best investigation practice requires that they must all sit down, they must all talk, find amicable way of resolving the problem. So I think what they've done, to me, is the best approach that they have, resorted to.
We're joined via Zoom by Apia Kusi Adomako of CATS International with more on this development. Thank you very much, Mr. Adomako. Will you call this a retreat by MTN, and what's your understanding of the move?
I don't think it is a retreat by MTN. I think it is the best practice for MTN to have engaged with the regulator. Where you cannot challenge, of course, you have a constitutional right to go to court to challenge any issue that you are not satisfied with. But I think that when you have negotiation between, adjudication in court, I think that you would rather prefer to go for negotiation, which will yield a win-win solution, a win-win outcome for both parties. Because for the court, you are not assured whether you get the judgment to go into your favor. But when you go onto the table, at least at the end of the day, it will be a win-win between the player and the regulator. So I think that MTN going to withdraw the case is a sign that there's understanding, and also they believe that the regulator has exhibited a good faith that when they sit before the table, there can be an optimal solution for this issue.
All right, so it's understandable that MTN has decided, as you're saying, to withdraw this case, probably because they feel that their better approach would be negotiations. But I'm sure they had benefit of this this advice before they actually went to the Supreme Court.
Yes, I think at the beginning, we're also one of the people who suggested that going to court may not be the best option when you have not engaged the regulator to understand their concern and also understand the issue very, very clearly. But of course, it is always better than none. If you make a mistake, it doesn't mean that you continue to escalate the mistake that you have made. So coming to court, going for negotiation, I think it's a sign that MTN believes in the system. And also, as I said, that the regulators also exhibited a sign of good faith that once they sit down, the outcome will be beneficial to both parties as well as consumers and other players in the telecoms market.
Mr. Adomako, could it also be that they have benefit of some information that suggests that they probably could be losing?
I wouldn't want to say this, that they have a benefit of some information. This issue of significant market player, it borders more of economic principle than legal litigation. And so for me, the court may not be able to do justice to the economics of the issue. But when the two parties sit down, MTN brings their economic experts, NC also brings their experts, and then they look at which of the angle is giving us the best outcome. And then at the end of the day, the expert opinion should be the way forward. Because a judge decision is more or less like a binary. When you go to court, it is two outcomes, whether you lose or you win. The court will not come and say 50 for MTN, 50 for NC. But once you go through this negotiation, you see that it is better, because at the end of the day, you will still need the regulator. The regulator will still be the one to superintend over the market. So if you go to court and you win or you lose, it may create a kind of a bloodbath or something else between you and the regulator. And so I think that for going forward, MTN might have weighed all the options based upon the best practices and decided that, of course, if they go for negotiation, they can still come back to court anyway. So that is also another thing that you must also understand.
Do you foresee a situation where the regulator, the NC in this case, could soften its stance on the fact that MTN is a significant market player?
I think the regulator is to ensure a level playing field for the market. And so it is not about the regulator softening its stand. The regulator is there to ensure that the market functions at optimal level. And this is an issue of fact, not an opinion. So I think that NCA may decide that, look, instead of taking these measures within a short time, let's give ourselves a year or two to implement those reforms so that at the end of the day, MTN will not suffer unduly within the short time. And that could be something that the regulator can do in terms of the implementation of these measures. I mean, I also believe that all the measures should not be deployed immediately after the negotiation. They have to give them some time. MTN has invested, so their shareholders are also expecting a return on their investment. So I think that the regulator will need to be guided by the best practice, so that at the end of the day, everybody will feel satisfied after the meeting has ended.
Now, it's obvious that MTN is going to come out of this impacted adversely, but is there a way that it can minimize the adverse impact?
I wouldn't say that MTN would come out impacted. I mean, adversely is too strong a word to use, but I think that.
But clearly, they don't like what this is. They don't like what's going on, and which is why they're fighting it.
Yes, because for MTN also believes that with them by happening and come up or if the regulator had acted in 2015 or 2016 or 17, I think that we will not be having this level of conversation. So MTN, I mean, as a player, MTN still believes in the market. But I think for now, whilst we are talking about MTN, we also need to be talking about other players that are also not doing well, other players that are also not investing. So if we resolve the issue of MTN and the other players do not invest in the market, and MTN escalates their investment, in 2 or 3 years, we will still come back to this situation. So I think, as I said at the beginning when this whole issue started, I think that the regulator needs to ensure the licensing requirement comes with some level of investment so that this issue of some of them slowing down and others running fast and later telling those who have reached the final threshold to pause, so that those who are asleep market, because the market is there to reward hard work, not inefficient players.
All right, thank you very much. Apia Kusi Adomako is with CATS International. We appreciate your insights this evening. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission has announced an increase in the minimum capital required to operate for all capital market players. There is more in the following Business Desk report.
Based on the proposed review, fund management firms are required to have a minimum capital of 2 million cedis by December 2021. Brokerage dealers are also required to have a minimum capital of 1.5 million cedis. A trustee should also have at least 50 million cedis. Primary dealers should also by December 2021 have a minimum capital of 400 million cedis. According to the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), exiting market players are expected to meet their new capital requirement by the end of next year, that is December 2021, while new entrants should meet it immediately. In addition to the new licensing guidelines, the Securities and Exchange Commission has also issued other guidelines to steer the operations and activities of market operators. These include conduct of business guidelines, regulatory sandbox licensing guidelines, and corporate governance code for listed companies. The exchange had argued that these are part of a broader measure to bring some sanity into the industry after the recent cleanup that resulted in some firms being liquidated.
The Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana has reiterated the importance of the marketing bill, which was assented to by President Akufo-Addo last month. According to National President of the Institute, Dr. Daniel Kasati, the marketing law will set standards for the practice of marketing in the country. Nicholas Brown has the rest of the story.
Speaking to Joy Business after the launch of the 2020 CIMG Awards, National President of the Institute, Dr. Daniel Kasati, said the marketing law, which seeks to sanitize the marketing industry, will regulate the practice of the marketing profession and save the country millions of dollars.
If you are a Ghanaian and you desire to pursue a professional marketing qualification, you have to register with an external body, say the SIM, UK, or an analogous professional qualification that, like the IMM in South Africa and the like. Once you register, your student membership subscription has to be paid in pound sterling or any other hard currency. Your examination fees, you can imagine if any level you are writing 4 or 5 papers and you have something between 180 to 250 pounds sterling per paper. That is what you have to be paying per module for all the levels up to the time that you qualify. If we aggregate this for all the number of Ghanaian students who pursue professional marketing exams at the end of the year, it's so huge, and it affects this country.
Also, Dr. Kasati urged businesses not to use the impact of COVID-19 as an excuse to streamline their budget, but businesses should rather use creative approach to stimulate demand for their goods and services.
If times get hard, and the first approach for an organization is to cut marketing budget, it is like saying cost of feeding is going high. So let's begin by cutting parts of the body away. So we start from where? The head. Once you cut the head, the human being doesn't exist again. So marketing spend should be the last thing to touch in hard times, because you need to find creative ways of stimulating demand for your products and services.
On her part, Vice President and Chairperson of the CIMG Awards and Planning Committee, Agnes Emefa Issa, told Joy Business this year's event seeks to improve on the professionalism in the marketing industry in a disruptive era.
We want to ensure that the standards of professionalism and excellence in marketing is maintained. So this award scheme is a rigorous process where you have lots of captains of industry participating, many organizations and individuals who nominate people and organizations that have shown stellar marketing performance in the past year. So for us is to celebrate excellence and to continue to encourage marketers wherever they are to be at the forefront of driving business growth.
According to the chairperson of the Awards and Planning Committee, there will be a marketing week and seminars ushering in the 2020 CIMG Awards. Nicholas Brown reporting for Joy Business.
Government says it has made significant strides in the delivery of its promise to construct a factory in each constituency. It says 76 factories have been completed out of the 232 which are at various stages of completion. According to the Vice President, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, the Planting for Food and Jobs program will be used to enhance the potential of every district which hosts a factory. He spoke at the commissioning of a rice processing factory at Didipa Rice in the new Edubiasi constituency as part of a campaign tour of the Ashanti region. Nane Aljima has more on the following report.
Aside cocoa, rice is the widely grown crop in the new Edubiasi and its environs. The factory, established through the partnership between Big Agrochemical and government in 6 months, will process and package 7 tons of rice each day, which is 140 bags of rice. Through the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative, 465 acres of land is being farmed by 200 outgrower farmers who have been supported by government. Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia assured the government industrialization agenda will be enhanced.
This Planting for Food and Jobs initiative was implemented to help farmers. I know that as this place, you plant rice more. That is why President Akufo-Addo helped to give out rice seeds and fertilizers. These helped to increase rice production.
Meanwhile, the vice president has also been comparing the records of his government to the Mahama administration.
Out of the 232 factories under construction, 76 of them have been completed. During the NDC's tenure, they constructed 2 factories in 8 years.
Now, Ghana, through the Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation, has revealed plans to build a bauxite refinery plant in the western region. The region has large bauxite deposits. CEO of the corporation, Michael Ansa, says this will enhance the local economy and create jobs in these communities. He was speaking at the inauguration of committees in bauxite mining across the country. Prince Appiah was there.
Mining communities in the country have for many years struggled with infrastructure development regardless of its contribution to the GDP. Leadership of these communities have bemoaned the exodus of the youth for greener pastures as a result. One of such is Chief of Awaso in the Bibiani Amiaso Bekwai municipality of the Western North region, Nana Kwame Amponsadebra III.
The youth in this community, they end up traveling from here to other community in search of greener pasture. So it's my hope now that Nana Akufo-Addo and his government has come in, the company or employ or see to the youth the skills that they are looking for, the community don't have. They can pick them, send them, train them, and employ them.
The government, through the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation, has therefore inaugurated 19-member committees in the various bauxite mining communities to address this trend. Michael Ansa is the CEO.
We're very keen to make sure that first we engage with the community, that the community are part of what we're doing, that they understand the work that we want to carry out, and more importantly, we also understand what their expectations and aspirations are, to make sure that we'll be doing mining in a very responsible way. So we're carrying out baseline studies that will show us how we go about mining here. So the work that we're going to do here is really to not just continue what has happened, but to bring a new direction, a new imperative, a new strategy to how we accomplish bauxite mining, but in an integrated way.
The committee will ensure that people are properly engaged and involved in the economic and infrastructure development in these areas. CEO Michael Ansa says locals who qualify for any jobs within the value chain will be given the utmost priority in adherence to the local content law.
So the work of GIADEC is around not just mining bauxite, but refining bauxite and then smelting Ghana's alumina in our smelters here. We have a smelter in Tema, but today we have only bauxite mining here, and we're looking to build a refinery as well. And part of what we'll do differently is the way we'll engage the local community, the way we'll ensure that the jobs that come here, whether skilled labor or unskilled labor, we'll make sure that the local content aspect, as in the Ghanaian content, is also enshrined in law. So all of these things we're doing to make sure that Ghanaians have a real positive participation in what we're doing.
Meanwhile, there are calls for a policy to ensure subsequent government will continue the implementation of GIADEC plans. Nana Opondenche is the chairman of the Ananano Mining Advocacy Group and secretary to the Nyinehini Town Elders Society.
I hope Ghana has some policies in place. For instance, if really Nana Akufo-Addo has started this thing with the GIADEC, with the committee, the community coming together with a committee to move all this, if it can go on, so that even if another government comes in, we follow it up. This is what we, the community, want to know.
Prince Appiah reporting.
And that'll be all for Business Live for this evening. I'm Israel Lai.